Hello and welcome to Security. This is Eze, and this is part 3 of the AWS Wordpress Architecture Project. So in the last part, we finalized the installation of WordPress, and today we're going to continue with the setup and most likely finish configuration of WordPress and do some other configuration. And so without further ado, let's get right into it. So the last thing we did in part 2 was install WordPress, and first thing we're going to do in this part is to continue the configuration with the setup of Redis and also S3 for static files. So the first thing I'll do is change the settings on the WordPress server, the PHP settings, to allow me to upload the files I'm going to use to test the configuration after it's set up. Okay, so now make sure I'm connected to the WordPress server, and I'll go and look for this file. So the file we're looking for is a php.ini file, which you can find in the PHP settings for Apache. And here we're going to change 3 settings. We're going to change the first of all the upload max file size to increase the maximum allowable limit for uploaded files. We'll also change the post max size to increase the maximum size for allowed for blog post in total. And finally, we increase the max execution time for scripts as well. Your values don't have to be the same as mine, but we're just giving a buffer so that when we're running the test based on the size of the files, it doesn't fail. Okay, so now I'm done. I'll go ahead and restart the Apache service. And if our settings have been applied correctly, we should be able to confirm from the WordPress dashboard. So you click on Site Health, give it a couple seconds to load up. And under the Info tab, under the server, we should see the new settings that we just put in. Okay, so next thing I'm going to set up is Redis. And Redis is an in-memory cache that reduces the amount of requests to your server, especially in times of heavy workloads, so that it can work faster. So I'll go ahead and search for the Redis plugin. And I'll click on install now. Just give it a couple seconds to install. And it's done installing, I can click on activate. So WordPress is checking here for a Redis server that is running locally, but it can't find one, so it's saying it's unreachable. So we're not going to be using a local Redis server, but we're going to be setting up one on AWS as well. So I'll go back to the AWS console and search for Redis. I can open up the Redis console, and I'm going to create a Redis cluster. So I want to configure the Redis cluster. I'm not going to use easy create. So I would disable cluster mode and give it a name. I'll leave it as a multi-AZ configuration. And then I'll change the node type. I'll use a T4G micro. For connectivity, I'm going to create a new subnet group. I'll give it a name. So I'll select the WordPress project VPC and select the subnet that I want the Redis to be available in. So I want it to be available in US East 1A and 1B, and I want it to be available in the private data subnet. So that's private data 1 and private data 2 subnets. So availability zone placement, I want it to be in availability US East 1A preferred, and I just need one replica, so I'm going to go and remove one replica. So I just need one primary endpoint and one replica. The primary endpoint, I want it to be in US East 1A, because that's where my server is and I don't want any data transfer charges. Okay, so when I click on next, it says I need to correct the name. I just give it another name and I should be fine to click on next again. So you can enable encryption at rest here, but I'm not going to do that for this demo. And yeah, so I need to select a security group. But to do that, I need to first of all go create a security group. I just give it a name, Redis WordPress. And I'll make sure to connect it to my WordPress project VPC and add an inbound rule to allow traffic on the Redis port from the WordPress app security group. That should be fine. And I create a security group. Oh yeah, I need to put in the description. I always forget to do that. That should be fine now. Okay, so back to the Redis console. I refresh. You should see the new security group now. I can select it and choose. I'll also disable automatic backups for this demo. Not like that matters much anyway, but I'm just gonna do that and click next and review and create. So this takes a while to be done. I'll just give it some time and I'll get back to it. So what I'll do is while it's creating, I'll go back to the WordPress server and put in the Redis configuration. So back in my putty session, I'll open up the WordPress config file. And you can find it in the WordPress folder along with the other configuration files. So I'm going to put in the Redis configuration here. So I'll paste in this configuration. Of course, I'll leave a link to this in the description. And I can put in a comment as well to describe what it is. And finally, when Redis is done, I can substitute in the details here. So I'll just give it a few minutes and come back when it's done. Okay, so now Redis is done setting up. To get the endpoint details, I'll just click on the cluster name. And here I can see the primary endpoint, which I'm going to copy and paste in the WordPress config document. So I'll just replace it and paste it in there. Next, I'll remove the port number because that's not needed. And then I can save. And if I go back to the WordPress dashboard, I should have a connection now. So I just refresh the page and click Enable Object Cache. And with that, Redis has been successfully enabled. So next, I'll test that the website is still functioning properly by visiting the site and creating a blog post. And then I'll set up saving of static files with S3. Okay, so now I'll go back to my dashboard, click on Post and add new post. I'll just give it a title, test post, and I'm going to add an image that I will upload from my device. So I'll select an image, give it a couple of seconds, and just publish. So this is going to appear as a new blog post on the website. So if I go back to the home page, if I scroll down to the bottom, I should see the different posts with the new one I just added. So I can see a link to the post from the home page. Okay, so now if I open the image in a new tab, I can see that the image is being stored on the WordPress server, and I can see paths to where the image is stored. That's not what I want. I want it to be stored in S3 and served over CloudFront. So I'm going to set that up next. To do that, I'll return to the AWS console and search for S3, and I'll go to the S3 console to first of all create the S3 bucket. So I'll click on Create Bucket, give it a name. Remember, the name has to be unique for S3 buckets. It has to be globally unique. I'll just leave all the other settings as default, and yeah, click on create bucket. Okay, so back at the S3 console, I can see the bucket I just created. And if I select it, I should see that it's currently empty. So next, I'll go to the CloudFront console and set up a distribution to save the content of the S3 bucket using the CloudFront edge location. So this is a best practice as it reduces the latency for requests, as static files are served from edge locations that are closer to the end user. Okay, so I'll select the S3 bucket I just created as the origin domain. Next, I'll select the recommended origin access, which is the origin access control setting. And I'm going to create a control setting. I'll just leave it as default and create. This will give me a policy I can use to grant CloudFront access to the S3 bucket after the distribution is created. You can also select your price class depending on which edge locations you want available. So for mine, I'll just select North America and Europe. So I click on create distribution. And this shows I did not select a web application firewall setting, so I just said no, I don't need that, and create. I'll then copy the policy to give access to CloudFront. Go to my S3 bucket permissions, and paste in the policy from CloudFront, and this will give access to the CloudFront distribution to the S3 bucket. So CloudFront needs a few minutes to boot up, but while it boots up, what I can do is I can go to the IAM console, because I'm going to give the EC2 instance. I'm going to create an IAM role to give the EC2 instance access to write to S3. So in the IAM console, I'm going to click on roles, and I'm going to create a new role. So I'll make sure I have AWS service selected, and I'll select EC2 as the use case. So I'll click on next. And for permissions, I'm going to select S3 full access. Click on next. So next, I'll give the role a name. And then I can create role. So I have the role created. Next, I'm going to go to the EC2 console and attach this role to the EC2 instance. So back to the EC2 console, I'll select the instance, click on Actions, Security, and modify IAM role. And I'll select the role I just created and update the IAM role. So now the EC2 instance should have access to S3. Okay, so next, I want the EC2 instance to be able to write to S3, but I also want CloudFront to be able to distribute the content of the S3 bucket. So I'll check the status of the distribution. So it's still deploying. I'll just give it a few minutes and come back when it's done. Okay, so now the CloudFront distribution has been deployed successfully. I'll go over to the terminal and complete the configuration. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is install AWS CLI so I can confirm access to S3. So I run this command to install AWS CLI and give it a couple seconds to be done installing. Once it's done, I'll try and list all the buckets I have in S3. And if I can list them, then I know I have access. So just as a reminder, what we're trying to do is make the static files to be served over S3 and CloudFront and not over the web server. So right now, if you view the images in the blog post, you can see they're being served from this location in the server. And if we go to the server and check that that location. So I'm just going to cd into that directory. And if I list the content of this directory, you can see all the images. So I want these images and static files to be saved via CloudFront and not from the web server. To do that, I would sync the content of the folder where the static files are being saved to the S3 bucket, and I'll create a cron job that runs every minute to account for any updates. So basically every minute the folder is synchronized to S3. So to do that, I'll run the following command, and the delete flag ensures that anything that is in the bucket but is not present in the source folder is going to be deleted. So I'll specify the source folder, just copy and paste it from here. Okay, so actually I want the whole of the uploads folder. So I'm gonna remove that part. And then I'll specify the target, which is the S3 bucket. I'll also copy and paste it in. Okay, so if the command runs successfully, I should be able to see the contents of that folder in the S3 bucket now. And you can see I have all the static files in the S3 bucket. So obviously, because the bucket is not publicly accessible, I won't be able to view the files with the object URL. So if I try to view the file with the object URL, I should get an access denied error. Okay, so now that is successful, the next thing I'm going to do is to create the cron job that runs every minute. So I'll copy the command. And next I'll open up the cron tab file to edit the cron jobs. Okay, so just going to create a new cron job. I'll just give it a comment. So now I can enter in the specifics, first of all, of how often I want it to run, which I'm good. This is how you enter every 1 minute. And then I'll paste in the command that I want to be run every minute. So every minute, this command is going to be run on the system to sync the content of that folder, the uploads folder, to the S3 bucket. So that should be fine. I can save. And finally, I would edit the htaccess file to redirect any request for the uploads folder to CloudFront. So I'll open up the htaccess file and paste in this command. I'm going to leave a link to that in the description, of course. Then I'll edit this part and replace it with that of my CloudFront distribution. So I'll copy that and paste it in. And that should be fine. Then I'll just go ahead and save the configuration. So now to test what I've just done, I'll first of all refresh this page. And you can see it's being served over CloudFront and not the web server anymore. I'll also go ahead and create a new post to test that as well, to test that new files are also being sent to the S3 bucket and CloudFront. So I just give it a name, test CloudFront. And I'll upload a file. And just publish. Okay, so now if I go and view the post, I can try and view the image. And you can see the image as well is already being saved over CloudFront. So cron job is run, which sends the image to the S3 bucket, and the S3 bucket is saved over CloudFront. So it might not be as immediate as for yours as mine, or just give it at least a minute and it should show up. Okay, so I guess this is another good place to take a pause. And as a reminder, this is a reference diagram that we're using. And in this video, we'll set up Redis, that is the elastic cache in-memory cache for the server to increase the speed of handling requests. And we also set up um, S3 buckets and CloudFront to serve static files. So static files are not served directly from the web server, but from the S3 bucket and from CloudFront. So in the next video, we're going to continue with the configuration. And yeah, thanks for watching. If this has been helpful to you or you're enjoying the videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.